They didn't hold a press conference. They actually didn't even say goodbye. When the Beatles broke up, it wasn't necessarily with a big bang blowout. It was with a legal document, a silent stare, and a whole lot of lawyers. After Abbey Road, the Beatles never recorded one more note together. But they didn't announce they were breaking up, not yet, because the final unraveling of the biggest band in the world wasn't loud. On the contrary, it was painfully, piercingly quiet. When the Beatles walked out of EMI Studios after recording Abbey Road, everyone was already circling different orbits. John had privately told the others, "I want a divorce." He agreed not to say anything publicly, not while the business of the band was all mangled and tangled, and that was getting sorted out. Paul was furious, but he also stayed silent. George, he was already spiritually checked out, and that leaves us with Ringo, who was just doing his best to hold everyone together. Now, there's a whole other world going on behind the scenes. Their manager, Alan Klein, was negotiating deals, making promises, and quite frankly, stirring tension. I mean, this is what had just happened. The Beatles just made one of the greatest albums of all time.
Right now, over me, here comes the sun. I say it's all right. Everybody's happy. She said she'd always been a dancer.
Still considered to this day. They dropped it, gifted it to the world, and then just disappeared. By late 1969, things were no longer just personal. They started getting legal. John had aligned himself with Alan Klein. Paul, on the other hand, was skeptical and advocating for the Eastmans to step in. He's been speaking this from the beginning, his in-laws. And this divide quintessentially led to a civil war. Instead of rehearsals, they were in boardrooms. Instead of making music, they were making threats. George said it best. It used to be so simple. In September of 1969, barely days after finishing Abbey Road, John told Paul and Ringo he was done. Not in a dramatic explosion, didn't come to that, but what was present was his weariness of someone who was already left. Decision made. Paul tried to talk some sense into him, tried to talk him out of it. Ringo was just sitting there awkwardly, like one of those what do I do with my hands kind of situations. And George, you'll never believe it, he wasn't there. But here's a twist. John agreed to keep it private, not to go public with it. Why? Well, because Alan Klein was in the midst of finalizing a colossal business deal. And if the Beatles were officially broken up, it could ruin everything. So they had broken up, but the public didn't know about it. Not yet. For months, the world waited. The Beatles weren't touring, they weren't releasing any new music, and they weren't even appearing together. And I bet you know how this one goes, considering how little the world has actually changed in this specific facet. The whispers started. Were they broken up? Was John going solo? Where was Paul? Well, Paul was in hiding. Paul had retreated to his farm in Scotland with his wife, Linda, and their baby, Mary. Oh, and a bottle of whiskey, of course. Let's just say it. He wasn't okay. He felt deeply, sincerely, profoundly betrayed. And he was trying to record his own music on a 4-track machine all alone. Oh, and then came April 10th, 1970. Paul was preparing to release his debut solo album, McCartney, and Apple Records sent out a press packet. Inside it was a self-interview, and buried deep in it was a line. Are you planning on releasing any new album or single with the Beatles? No. Just like that. It was over. Done. The entire world found out from a promo mailer. Do you think John was happy? He was livid. And not because Paul had ended it, but because he wanted to be the one to tell the world, and he agreed to stay silent. Remember, he didn't say a thing, and now Paul comes in and steals his thunder. It's unacceptable. just to set the record straight, I'm not taking any sides here. I'm just really trying to demonstrate and convey each person's frustrations in this scenario. Some may argue that that's worse, like playing devil's advocate. But the bigger point is John was infuriated, and the Beatles weren't just broken. They were shattered. By the end of 1970, Paul filed a lawsuit to formally dissolve the Beatles as a business partnership. It was devastating, but it was also necessary. It was the only way forward. It was the only way to legally cut ties with Alan Klein, the villain, the only real villain here, okay? And it was the only way for all the others to keep their own careers going and their own money intact. So our Fab Four ended not with a farewell concert, but in court. John, George, and Ringo were enraged at first, it's true. But then later, even they admitted that Paul had actually wound up saving them. After all the exhaustion of the lawsuits, the interviews, the drama, which seemed endless, then came silence. No more Beatles, no farewell show, no public closure. Now all we had were these four insanely famous men, now solo artists, trying to discover who they were without each other. And as a vital factor to the whole Beatles operation, we have the fans. Some clung to the hope. Others believed those fans were delusional. Some blamed Paul. Some blamed Yoko. Some blamed Klein. I blamed Klein. And some just spun the records on an endless loop. The dream was over. And for a lot of people, so were the 60s. But, because there is always a but, and this one is just so nice. What the world didn't see coming was that the Beatles still had one more album waiting in the wings. Already recorded, already filmed, already wrapped in chaos. And it would be released posthumously. It's like one of those message in the bottle, message from the past kind of situations. And right here, you and I have a mission for next time. We've got to just let it be.